Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishna Nair, and here basically we are discussing the part of attraction. Part of attraction, basically. What actually the attraction is. In this, basically, we discussed that how basically the next generation is supposed to go and next generation is not supposed to go. Who are those groups basically who decides this basically. That basically we were discussing. In this, basically, we discussed that software company says that basically we gets the project, but basically we nobody are able to track that basically how basically the projects are basically getting. Still now, basically in last part, basically we were the software company was not clear that basically which all projects basically they are going to get and which all server companies are there basically who basically has allocated the project basically. Literally, it was not clear. So government told that basically to the software company's owner basically the project is going to come, but it's not clear basically. But the government don't know basically what computer is, what software is. That's why basically they were not able to clear. But the administration department basically lots of people basically say that basically we are clear, but we are also not a software group basically. So we can't say up to the certain level basically, but we are clear about the infrastructures basically. For example, HP infrastructure, we basically know how basically the HP server basically are connected with the set of infrastructure, and according to that only basically they gets the project. For example, army person basically given the project to particular group basically. Assume that HP Compact they basically given to this particular server or IBM, Microsoft, any basically of the server basically he given. So basically he might be knowing, right, that this is the infrastructure basically, this is the according to the infrastructure only basically this person basically can able to do the project basically. Because when the software industry was not there basically, that time also basically the project was ongoing, right? Project was ongoing, so army groups told that basically you can basically give the army groups team basically told that basically the project basically can be given to this server company basically. Like this many basically groups are there basically who basically says that we allocates the project basically, we basically allocates the project here basically. The detailed project basically only software company basically can design, because software creation basically only software company can do, right? The overall basically the budget, overall the basically the project design basically is done by the HP, the each and every server company. Why? Because they basically are the infrastructure group basically. On the base of the entire software companies are basically going to create the project and going to launch their project into that server basically. That's why basically the border basically is basically created by these software companies basically. That is basically the HP server companies basically. They have the infrastructure na, basically. On the base of the infrastructure only basically they are going to create the project. So they only knows, right? They only knows basically which infrastructure basically can do the projects. So like this, all of are also basically there. Then basically one of the medical department basically told that we also basically have the project. Medical groups basically told that we also have the project basically. That was basically the in this basically this group basically also comes. That is basically the Harvard groups. The Harvard that particular student basically who actually told that basically this all basically the this all are the basically the buildings basically which basically got created on the base of his new ideas basically, which was basically created from the World Bank basically. So one World Bank creation product basically that new ideas basically was launched. So whenever the idea basically gets that basically idea basically was connected with the Harvard University. Harvard University told that we are into the creation of the Harvard University, each and every ideas. So whenever the people basically are going to read the book, then basically according to that, the Harvard groups basically connected with the few syllabus changes also, because the new idea basically was connected by one of the student of the Harvard University. They checked each and everything basically, and then basically they told that basically we are ready to create this new infrastructure basically, which is going to change the Harvard University syllabus basically. So they literally changed the syllabus basically. They literally basically changed the syllabus on the base of the student performance basically. So the performance was the new product basically, which was created by World Bank, sorry, by that particular student in the World Bank basically. Basically, he joined the World Bank. Assume that from Accenture company, he basically done his started his software creation of the banking, and then basically connected to the World Bank. And there basically he basically created one software, and sorry, we basically created one product basically in bank World Bank. Basically, only products basically can be created. Software basically many less people basically. Software means this is product is also basically software, but product are basically totally different. And software creation basically are basically individual requirements basically, you can say, which can't be reused. It's a basically specific requirements. Products means basically it can be reused to the another group also. It can be reused. So World Bank basically mostly creates products only, because World Banks is connected with the lots of banks. That's why the things basically which they create basically, that is to be supposed to be reusable, right? So like this, the World Bank basically told that, the Harvard group basically told that basically this is the new infrastructure basically which is created on the base of that particular student, and he was basically into the World Bank, and he basically created new product. On the base of that, basically we created 4 5 buildings basically, and that 4 5 buildings was basically one of the ideas basically which the students are going to connect in future whenever they are going to read the book. According to that, they are going to connect to the energies basically, which power company is going to give to that particular each and every student basically, who are going to connect to that particular ideas. And like this basically, if they are connecting to the set of ideas, then basically by default the blood cells is also going to generate. So when blood cells is going to generate, then basically the next level of blood cells is 100% going to generate inside each and every students basically. So which student is going to generate new thing basically? That's basically need to be tracked basically. That's why basically lots of university group says that basically we basically keep each and every people's ideas, basically each and every student's ideas into the computers basically. Whatever ideas basically they thinks basically, we basically dumps into the software, into the computer basically, in the text into the text readable format basically, into the text readable format. So just see basically how the medical industry basically also connected here. And basically the medical industry also basically told that basically we also basically, whenever this idea is going to get processed, this all our disease basically 100% going to happen. So according to that, basically the 100% going to happen disease basically, that needs the medicine also. That medicine basically can be in the form of power supply, energies, and basically in the form of the medicine basically, which basically doctors use basically, which basically the doctors use basically. So power supply means whenever the students basically are going to get this disease basically, then power supply basically is going to take care of that. And if the disease basically comes in with the student basically, then basically the doctors comes into the picture. The doctors basically gives the medicine. So like this basically many things are basically there which gets connects. and here basically the medical industry basically got connected. And like this basically the human needs basically gets creates. For example, one person told that basically we don't want to create any medicine basically for that. Then basically he told that you can create any of the vegetables, any of the fruits basically for the Harvard groups basically. That is basically the if Harvard it's a Harvard groups basically, then the cost of that particular vegetable or fruits also might be very costly. Only basically Harvard groups can able to purchase that. Only Harvard basically groups can purchase that. So basically, they told that basically we will not create medicine. So we would be going to create fruits basically. That's why basically few businessmen of the software industry basically they say that eat each and every foods and each and every fruits like a medicine. So this basically is the reason basically because you can't say that which item basically you are eating that is basically has to be considered as a medicine basically because you are going to get that disease, right? So before basically going to get the disease basically why don't we directly take the medicine in advance basically, that is the basically fruits and the vegetables basically. So literally basically the college basically environment basically contain that foods basically, that college basically contains environments basically in the campus basically all foods basically are basically, and like this basically they gets the habit also basically. And if they gets the habit then basically they search for the outside food also basically where these foods basically we get. So like this basically they get the habit of that foods that the basically that is basically the costly foods because if it's a Harvard University per month basically expense is more than crore rupees. So we can just imagine. So like this basically if the expenses of education is in crore basically then basically the foods also basically might be in very costly. So food's equal to medicine. Like this, basically, here basically we got the clearance basically that what actually that businessman, one of the businessmen basically told that eat medicine, sorry, eat foods or each and everything basically like a medicine. So this basically is the example, best example of basically that that particular businessman basically, whoever businessman basically is, he actually told one thing basically. This was the thing basically: eat medicine, eat foods like a medicine. So this basically is the example, best example of that businessman told basically. So basically, it's very difficult to track basically the basically what actually the big businessmen are telling basically. So this was the best example to clear that example. So we can just imagine the things basically which are getting connected with each another basically. So here also basically the attraction basically comes into the picture. Here also basically businessman groups basically decides basically uh, the vegetable and fruits basically got created, right? He's going to create, right? And the medicines also are also going to create. So here also their group decides that basically which group is supposed to go for next generation and which group is not supposed to go for next generation. So that's basically the topic. Our topic is next generation is supposed to go, or this particular person basically generation is supposed to go, or the particular person generation is not supposed to go. So that basically is the decision basically, which basically the creator group basically do. And here the Harvard group basically that particular person basically has drawn the generation basically you can say drawn actually the generation basically which generation basically can connect up to these ideas and which person basically can't connect to that idea. So he literally basically told that basically this generation can use this idea and which generation basically can't use that idea by that creation basically 4 to 5 buildings basically created from his energy basically. So just see basically the things basically which connects anytime basically any second basically it gets connect. So this was that energy basically which told that basically buildings are created and then basically the medical industry came into the picture and medical industry told that basically from this idea basically this all are the disease basically which is going to generate, and from the disease are basically going to covered by the doctors group or by the power companies or by the energy companies or by the food industry basically. Like this basically the business basically connects here. Like this basically connects to the business level, right? So which business, so here basically the businessman basically, who are the businessmen basically, they have to be keep active basically, that which basically ideas are basically coming into the market. That's why basically lots of people says that they connect with the education industry basically, because education industry is the future business basically. Education industry says that, lots of people basically says that education industry is the future industry. So this is the example basically, that particular Harvard person basically, Harvard student basically was a student basically, then basically he joined as a employee in Accenture basically, and in Accenture basically he got one project basically, that was a banking project. And when then banking project basically, that banking project basically connected to banks, to banks, to banks, banks, on the base of the study basically which he has done basically. According to that basically he connected to lots of ideas, and then basically he connected to the this banks to banks basically, the Harvard University know that each and every banks are basically products basically, and there is a chain of banks to banks. So like this, the Harvard group basically, according to that only basically they have created their infrastructure. That is basically 300 cities, and this 300 cities are basically the syllabus of the entire Harvard University. But the places basically 300 city basically where each and everything is, that basically is a secret basically, because it's connected with the directly connected with the energies. That's why basically. So like this medicine, medical industries also basically comes into the picture. Like this, the attraction basically comes into the picture. Like this, each and every things basically are there which are basically connected. And this here the main thing is basically each and everything basically which the rule of the earth planet basically say that whichever things basically gets creates, whichever things which these 3 to 4 buildings are got created, this is going to generate these blood cells, this is going to generate this disease, and this disease are going to be covered by the power company, energy company. Going to covered means they are going to give the treatment of this or the medicine by um, this power company, energy companies, and by the few vegetables and fruits also basically groups say that we also basically going to give the medicine. And few basically groups says that basically it's a very critical, so we only basically doctors basically directly gets handles. So like this whole idea basically gets generates, right? Like this whole idea basically getting generated. Here the main thing is this, everything is basically documented, but that has to be display, that has to be display in front of the public also, in front of the public. So the Bollywood industry, Hollywood industry basically comes into the picture. And Harvard basically, it's a Harvard University. Here basically I'm taking just as an example of Harvard University, but in real it can be any university basically. But it's the ideas basically of the special ideas basically are only connected with the big universities only, because there are lots of investment basically that has to be done. So 300 city creation investment, it's a normal university basically can't do basically. Normal university basically they can't do. That's why basically I have taken as an example of Harvard University. So like this basically the Hollywood group basically connects here. They say that basically they basically say that basically each and everything basically is documented, and we got the documentation basically. So according to that, the producer, directors, basically writers, basically they connects with these things basically, and they basically read each and every documents, and literally without seeing the practical thing basically they can't judge the things. So they visits the Harvard University, they see that particular person basically who on the base of what the person basically the things are going to generate, things has basically generate, things basically has generate. According to that basically the 3 to 4 buildings, 4 to 5 buildings basically has generated, and this 4 to 5 buildings is going to generate this all energies, ideas, and the basically the disease, then disease ka medicine, how medicines are basically going to be dumped into the human bodies that are basically Harvard University students. It would be in the form of power supply, energy supply, or in the form of the medicine, or in the form of the vegetables or of fruits, basically. This all basically has to be displayed in front of the public. For that, basically, they creates movies. Few people says that basically few the Harvard University basically says that our budget is okay, basically. Then you can do one thing, you can create the movies, basically. There is no issue. Few universities say that our budget is not too much, so you can do one thing, you can create serials, basically. Few universities say that no, our budget is not too much, basically. So you can create few advertisement, basically. In advertisement, basically, you can display entire things, basically. So you can just imagine everything has to be displayed in front of the public, basically. Whatever creation basically has happened in this world, that must has to display, basically. That is basically must, basically comes into the must factor, that this thing basically has to have to and is supposed to be displayed in front of the public. That is basically in the form of television only is the source. Television is also only the source, basically. For that, basically, serials, advertisement, theaters, movies basically gets created. So like this Bollywood or Hollywood groups in Bollywood basically are connected with the local universities that are basically the India country university, and international university, basically that's the Hollywood group. But few university owner basically are Indian group, basically. Few university outside owners are basically Indian. So they basically give the task to the Bollywood also and then the Hollywood also. Because he is Indian, so basically he might be having some emotional effects. So basically he will give the task of this university advertising to the Bollywood group. But he basically stays there, so he has to basically go according to the culture of that particular country. So there basically he gives the this university advertisement, the projects to. This is basically one project, basically you can say. This basically is one project. So he gives to the Hollywood also. So like this basically you can just imagine basically the things basically which is getting connected. So this is also basically one of the attraction, basically, which basically where basically one person is telling that one group person basically is telling that this person basically generation has to go, this person generation is not supposed to go. So this is also basically one of the part, basically. So in next part basically we are going to discuss little bit more detail of the attraction, that also the fast level attraction, up to what level the attraction is, and then basically the which generation is supposed to go and which generation is not supposed to go in particular things, basically. In particular basically means the idea basically which 4 to 5 building was created, that is basically for specific group only, basically, right? Because he literally told that basically only few people basically can able to connect to that particular area, because he was 90 percentage holder, basically. He basically connected to the Accenture. He got the banking project, then basically connected to banks. Then basically connected to the World Bank. He got the job in World Bank, and then basically created one product, basically. And after that product creation, the product was totally new in the World Bank, basically. So like this, basically, everybody basically in Harvard University can't do basically that. Everybody can't score 90 percentage. Everybody can't score 95 percentage. Everybody can't score 100 percentage. So like this, basically things are there. So here basically the thing was 90 percentage. So 90 percentage he scored. Then joined Accenture. Then basically he joined World Bank. Then basically created new product, new idea basically got attached to him, new ideas basically got created, and antibiotic also basically was inside his body only, because when he basically connected with that idea, that time basically lots of energies are also basically was connected with him. So he got antibiotic also inside the body automatically. Then few people basically don't get the antibiotic, so they get disease, basically, and then basically disease then basically doctors basically connects here. So here basically doctors connects here, and then basically they give the medicine, and like this basically the things basically keeps on going, and then basically the uh, so here the thing is basically few people only basically can reach up to these particular ideas. That's why basically the certain level of ideas basically only those group can do basically who are up to the level. And basically few people basically say that this person basically can't go in this area next generation, and few people basically can go to this ideas for next generation. So this is also one of the part basically. In next part basically we are going to discuss a little bit more about this attraction and next generation can go, which person basically can go to next generation, which person is can't go to next generation.